for joining us today for our Board of Education pre-work session. The cadence allows board members to prepare for upcoming regular meetings through these pre-work sessions. They're more casual, they're info gathering. No formal votes will be taken. We'll begin our pre-work session with the conclusion of our book study, great on their behalf. Dr. Whitaker will facilitate conversations on part 2, how your schoolwork can become effective, specifically step 5, communicating results. Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Know that this has been a great, I think, book study for us to engage in. After reading pages 251 through 263, I asked the board to think about a couple of C's around communication. 1, connections. 2, challenges. 3, concepts. And 4, changes. So 1, when looking at the connections, what connections do you draw between the text and this actual governance team, who we are as a body? Anyone?
I'll start by just saying that it's kind of been uncanny how closely it's talked about subjects that we are, literally dealing with. And each time I've opened it, I've been like, oh yeah, how to engage in community public sessions. It was like, oh, that's what we just did. And, how to report out data and when to make data available. So my major connection is that the timeliness and appropriateness of this book is not lost on me at all. Mm-hmm. Even if we go back to the earlier stuff, and we got a few public comments, and I followed up with a couple of neighbors. We live in an academic city, very large number of people, and so I think they appreciate it, and I appreciate it as a board member just reading this academic work on the subject.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to share their connections?
I think one thing that resonated with me is that it's unreasonable to expect community members to, at times, maybe understand what we understand, and figuring out how to best help that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a connection or a change, but maybe it's an overlap of the two, but I really liked the school board school idea. I thought that was a really cool concept, because that gets exactly to the point that Ms. Anderson was just mentioning. And I frankly don't think we can have too many opportunities to have two-way conversations with. That really, really stuck out to me. And I know with some of the debates that we've had as a body in the last couple of weeks, for the last 10 years, I think this board and this district has had exactly, I can think of 3 two-way community conversations, and they've all been under this administration's leadership. And so I just would like more of that, more opportunities for people to ask questions and us to have a civil, conversant response.
One of the things that, to your point, we've already approved what would be the calendar for next year, which includes the 3 community meetings. I did talk to Dr. Broom today about adding a community meeting in March prior to the tentative vote, and still keeping the community meeting that is in April, so that you can have the conversation with the community before tentatively approving the budget, and then have the budget hearing. So understanding the frequency and the timing for those two-way communications, I think is key. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I see a lot of the ideas that you have, the things that you've implemented, reflected in here. And I think it's been refreshing, including the listening sessions, but the association with outcomes, everything ultimately should be about student outcomes. And I think that previously has been the intent, but we haven't had the guardrails and all of those things that he talks about in here, those reminders. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you want to move to, I was going to move to challenge. You have another.
Oh, no, actually, that'll be
Okay.
better under
You
that
keep
anyway.
going.
All right, so challenge. What ideas, positions, or even assumptions do you want to challenge or argue with that's in the text?
Okay, I'll say one, because I love the book, as I said before. I wish he included, or maybe there'll be a second edition, more of the nuanced stuff, because to me, the examples that are used are such good ones, but I haven't seen any of those kind of issues come up here.
Mhm.
So it's mostly, fine, we have this, now move into the more, like I said, nuanced stuff.
Mhm.
I think one that, this was in my connections here, that, all school boards are distracted by adult topics. And, he brought that up in a couple of chapters, but, I didn't get a good answer as to how you overcome that. Other than just kind of other than communicating often, sometimes that doesn't dispel myths readily. You know, you can keep getting in front of the community, which we're all willing to do, but sometimes, that doesn't often overcome whatever, or, you know, whatever is the topic of the day that tends to keep us away from those outcomes-based, you know, conversations, that really should be focused on. He also mentioned a couple of times that, you know, all public school systems struggle or will actively work on closing that achievement gap, for, students that have, students of color especially. But I felt like he made the assumption that it was all based on race, and I didn't know if I got a really solid foundation as to what he was thinking as to why every single major urban district struggled with it. He brought up Detroit a lot, LA County a lot, and, Decatur is a very different setup than those school systems, and we don't have the same problem. So I didn't know if I got a very satisfying answer as to why he felt like almost every public school system has an achievement gap, and why, I understand why it has to be focused about first, but I kind of wish that had gotten a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe if the answer was there, we could solve the problem.
I can't remember if this was my chapter, monitoring progress, but the process, it felt a little overwhelming in terms of all of the meetings, that are supposed to take place.
It is a text, so it's not, hear me when I say your Bible, that you have to implement from cover to cover and do. It's not that. It's giving you ideas to create the community engagement that you desire and we desire as a team. So for me, two-way communication and enhancing community stakeholder engagement, all of those things, those were the things that you as a board told me, we want you to work on, and how can we do it? So this gave us the roadmap to it, but that does not mean that we need to do everything that's in it. I'll be honest, I know that this author works heavily in very urban environments. Not everything that you read do you need to say, we're going to do it all. So I disagree, you know, with some of the pieces that he is saying around the monitoring of progress. I know what is palatable for this board and to have parameters. So you may learn, and after studying the district for a couple of years, which going back, and I could watch all the board meetings, no one presents to you with more than 6 content slides. Unless, of course, it's the budget. But as far as true monitoring of data, and it does follow his format of what it is, what's working, what's not working, what are we gonna do about it, and when are we gonna come back to you again? Cabinet knows that's what I expect in the presentation, and you might have another slide just to say something else. But 6 content topics, because we do have to lift a lot of work. And your oversight at the governance level needs to be at the governance level and not at the administrative level, which I think is what he's talking to the board in the book, but saying these are the things that the administration should bring forth.
So I'm keenly interested in our KPA conversation on March 28th, because I think that ties a lot of what we're talking about together.
Yep.
I realize that he's trying to reset expectations with a lot of boards. You know, the 50% of the board meeting should be focused on student outcomes. But there's really 10 to 12 metrics, right? I mean, there's really a dozen, let's say a dozen things that we would want to look at kind of routinely to track where we are in terms of kind of student outcomes and student performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any scenario where that takes up 50% of a meeting. Now, what I like in the concept of the book is lead with that. Ensure everything that you talk about can reference back to that. Ensure that every one of those presentations, you can look at the needle on one of those metrics. I agree with that wholeheartedly. We're not quite there yet, right? We really haven't looked at student-focused outcome data in a systematic way yet. And I know that's where we're trying to get to, but we aren't there yet. So I am very keen to get our meetings sort of started with and routinely focused on student outcomes. I question whether that's going to be 50% of the meeting. Maybe that would be the way that I would say it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is student outcome data, to have fresh, actionable data for an administrative level, you have to first start at when the assessment is given.
Yep.
And then the timeliness of when the results are available have been analyzed first by the administration, then presented to the school board and the community. You know, it starts really around a data and assessment and data use calendar, which in your board management oversight process for also on the 28th, you will see that is where we have started. The first thing I have to do is look at when are results going to be available, and then determine what that process is for ensuring that the governance team is aware and the community.
I know historically there's been a lot of data that we've looked at that is, I would say, process data, like how far are we tracking along fixing the thing that drives the outcome, not the actual outcome. So I'm also very interested to see those changes.
All right. Any other concepts or challenges or anything else anyone would want to lift from the conclusion or even from the communication of results?
I'm always going to push for more open, transparent, direct, honest, and in-the-moment communication when questions get raised. And I know that my very beloved fellow board member next to me will continue to debate with me about what constitutes norms and what the appropriate format is. And so I look forward to continuing that debate with you, Ms. Johnson-Davis. We'll get there. I mean, that's the nature of a partnership.
And for the record, I'm down for transparent communication.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's just the timing of it.
Yeah, Hans is engaged with what is my one challenge with this book, is that it's introduced student outcomes as this umbrella thing. And I thought Tracy's point was really on that there's not any clear examples. And so what we're introducing is something that you were taught, we had a conversation about, it was like, you could tell it's Decatur email because they threw in the word equity 5 times to us, and they'd be like, and this is about equity. And you're like, what? Like, where did that come from? Like, you didn't make, and so people will start to make complaints, like, well, we're doing this because it's about student outcomes. They're like, why or how? And I'd love some examples, like, you know, a good principle, like, is immediately on my mind for a very student outcome driven thing. Razan said, like, being transparent. So I'm gonna wear this cloak of transparency and make this comment about what I want. And it's like, well, no one's advocating non-student outcomes. No one's advocating on this board inequitable outcomes. No one on this board is saying anything other than, you know, give teachers as much of a raise as we can, because we think that that is tied to student outcomes. So I love that book. I think that where the rubber hits the road is on this triple thing of, what does it mean to be student outcome driven? How do we communicate that transparently? And then how do we do exactly what you said, which is communicate with the public about what we're doing and what our values are and that sort of stuff. I say, my goal is just to make all of our students better in the classroom, and this book is a great template for that.
Well, thank you so much for engaging in this learning. I look forward to our study next year, which will identify the 3 areas in our self-assessment as needing improvement. So next month, I will provide you with a proposed plan. Melinda and I have been printing off different documents and looking at different books, so I'm really excited to see what it was going to be.
Thank you. Thank you for putting the book on our table. I think we all enjoyed it. We can move on to our next agenda item.
Yes. Chair Herndon, I would like to call on Mrs. Amanda Lynch, Chief of Staff, to begin discussion on a new policy, which is student demonstrations and strikes.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Herndon, Vice Chair Scholten, esteemed members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. G. Logan. Today, we have one policy on our pre-work agenda. Policies that are presented during pre-work are new business on which we are seeking input. These policies are being presented as initial drafts. They're being shared to gather your input and feedback that can be reflected in drafting or revising future versions. Today, we seek your input on policy JCEC, student demonstrations and strikes. As you know, the CFC vision is, we strive to cultivate an educational foundation that empowers students to realize their full potential, thrive as productive global citizens, ignite positive change, and create a more just and equitable world. The need to develop policy JCEC, student demonstrations and strikes, emerged as a way to codify the board's beliefs aligned to this vision. The draft of policy JCEC includes a statement that the Board of Education does not discourage or prohibit the peaceful expression of opinions or ideas. It acknowledges that students may exercise their freedoms of assembly as set forth in the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, as long as these activities do not interfere with school purposes, educational functions, or normal operation, cause a school disruption, interfere with the school's ability to keep students safe, or violate the student code of conduct. It states students who wish to have a peaceful demonstration are encouraged to discuss with school personnel to maintain a safe and non-disruptive environment. Finally, JCEC states the board authorizes the superintendent to develop regulations and/or processes to manage student demonstrations. For this initial draft, research was done on other districts with the same or similar policies, both in Georgia as well as in the larger national landscape, such as Oakland Unified School District. Consistency was found in explicitly acknowledging student speech and expression rights and the responsibility of districts to provide safe, non-disruptive learning environments. A draft of this policy was placed at your seat for your reference. I'd like to point out that this draft reflects several edits from our legal team to the language on the version that was initially shared. These edits did not change the substance. Instead, they removed unnecessary language and increased clarity. At this time, I will invite board discussion, including any input or feedback that should be considered for revision to the policy. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Carrie from our legal team is of course available to engage in the discussion if needed as well.
Taking the 2 lines that were taken out added clarity for me, because I had written notes, to discuss them in my one-on-one meeting with Dr. Whitaker yesterday, and I said, you know, I guess I'll just wait until today, but that helps. It
Great.
helps me, yeah.
Would it would it be additionally helpful, I mean, maybe this just comes under their regulations and processes, but I think that there is value in being extremely whatever the process is that the students need to follow to set up or arrange the demonstration, that we make that clear, that it's explicit, easily identifiable, and communicated well to the students, right? Because what we don't want is to say we have this policy that gets hidden, nobody ever knows about it, no student knows how to enact it, right? We want to make sure that it's.
And what I will say is this is very timely for where we're journeying with our student member or student representative of the board. So as we get to this point of now, this policy has been adopted, you know, it takes some months for us in our state. We now can say, well, here's this student representative that can help ensure that the policy is communicated to the student body. It also, that person will be able to share the sentiments behind the board and the and the regulation that goes along with it. We will make sure has outlined all of that. I know that in the environmental scan, and I will say specifically Oakland Unified School District, because if you know anything about Oakland, Oakland will protest. Oakland will strike. They will do demonstrations. They will have all of the above. Not only is it in concept, but it's in pure application. And for me personally, I have I know the superintendent there. So we talk about these things, and that's why I believe what we will produce as far as the regulation and teaching the students what that means, because we want them to be globally minded citizens, is part of the work.
I have two questions. The first one is, do we need to describe the role for staff here? So if staff participate in these protests, or if students go and use their rooms, if sometimes they have a role in this, or they really don't. Do they report to you?
In the regulation, it will call out what staff's role would be as well as students. Not necessarily it could be in the policy, but it's really up to the board.
And what exactly, and I see here where it was struck out about a decision to voluntarily allow students to leave without parental permission and the liability of student safety. So how would we handle student walkouts?
So ultimately, and Carrie, feel free to step in at any time, but ultimately, if students were to walk out and if they were not signed out or they left, that would be in violation of what's in the student code of conduct. So we wouldn't endorse that
So some of those details would be handled in regulation.
in regulation.
As to how.
I have a question. I assume then this is gonna be in the regulations or processes, so I see where it's talking about, school purposes, normal operations, disruptions, et cetera. So is it just assumed this is all related to the school day? Like if there's a football game and people wanna have a peaceful demonstration outside of does any of that matter in terms of school day or school affiliation or hours or anything?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I just wondering, maybe it's part of the process.
So, I mean, a football game would be a public event open to the public. Certainly, City Schools of Decatur has certain parameters about what can take place on its property, even during football games. But these are really more geared toward demonstrations during school hours on school property that is going to be disruptive of education.
Thank you.
But there are parameters. I mean, for example, we don't allow our students to bring drugs and alcohol to football games.
Right.
But if they wanted to protest outside of the football field, outside of school hours, and it's not interfering with the games, then likely there's not too much we would do. That would be the City of Decatur Police.
align with the political sentiment of the community, and then there are things that might not. And we, I think if we're gonna be protecting one form of speech, need to be protecting the other as well. So how do we ensure that we maintain a neutral position, supportive of whatever the position the students are choosing to do, that keeps us out of picking sides or more support for one side versus the other, right? Like that would be the concern that I would have. Like so I mean, it's a very natural issue that has come up recently is the October 7th issues, right? And those students and Muslim students feel free, regardless of what our particular thoughts, positions, or perspectives are. How do we ensure we maintain that neutrality? And is that something that is a policy level, or is that something that's a regulation level?
That's gonna be more of a regulation
Is it?
level.
Okay.
Because that's, I mean, you guys are developing the what, the administration is going to develop the how. And so what is going to be the process? What are the parameters around protests or demonstrations? Are we going to allow them at all? Well, according to this policy, it sounds like it would be allowed. So how do we do that in a way that does enable all students to be able to speak? Because you've hit the nail on the head, and this is where the rub comes. That once you open that door of, okay, well, we've allowed this group, you now can't say no to all these other groups. So the how becomes very important.
But that's where if that feels to me a bit like a what, right? Like a what is that we're maintaining neutrality on this, right? That we're going to allow different perspectives to protest, and we will be within the parameters that we set, supportive. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're supportive of the position. We're just that feels to me like a what, and that's why I raised the question.
I guess to Hans's point is that maybe something that should be in that first paragraph that says we allow peaceful expression, we allow expression of your ideas, but the city school Decatur cannot be a political platform. It's not our.
We are not taking.
We cannot do that. You see what I'm saying? Maybe some language that expresses that so that it's clear that if you allow one set of protests, you have to allow voices to be equally heard, something that, to his point, makes it clear that it's not our job to take a political side, if that.
Correct, but I think where the how comes in is that, are you going to allow these to be on campus, or they have to be off campus? Because if they're on campus, does it give the imprimatur of the schools that the school is endorsing it?
This is why I think making a part of the what is so critical, right? Because the first, foremost, most important aspect of any of this is the ensured safety of those students, which in my mind means, yes, on campus to the extent that that's possible. How do we ensure that by allowing it on campus does not put us in a position where we're taking a side? I think it has to be explicit that by providing the support to allow a student to express their perspective, it is not the same thing as saying we endorse that perspective on any side, right? Like we just have to, I think we need to be crystal clear about that.
No, I was just gonna say, we can develop a general statement to put in there that by allowing students to demonstrate or strike or however they want to phrase it, that the district is not endorsing any perspective of any group. I think that general statement can be put in the policy. Again, the how is, okay, well, if we're gonna allow it, are we gonna do it in a designated space? You can do it on the football field, you can do it at this area, the courtyard. You have to get permission from that kind of thing.
Understood.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it now because allowing them because of, depending on what it is, potentially will have to get resource officers involved depending on, what the topic is, who's demonstrating, and us, the board, providing the resources to make sure that you know, if, depending on where it falls in terms of community support, it could be really risky in terms of, well, you know, they're providing all this protection for this small group of folks who are protesting this, and that could be perceived as our support. I'm wondering now, you know, I'm wondering honestly if we should allow protests on campus, because there could be issues that could be really difficult to watch, to manage.
Gina, I think you and I are having the same questions, but the way I read this, it wasn't really permitting that we would have a process in place that would identify. Say, Hans, that the concern is making sure that whatever we're presenting is not allowing an impression that, one, we're endorsing it, or two, we're indirectly supporting one group over another. So am I correct that the way it's written, it is not saying encouraging this happening during the school day?
Well, I thought the process, how you can make it happen during the school day.
But it says not interfering, so.
So as long as it, I guess if the students go along with the process, then that would be a process that the district would have in place that wouldn't allow the school day to be disrupted.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm just like, there could be some issues that are gonna be.
But it sounds like that's one of the core tenets here, is that you can protest. We cannot endorse one side of the issue or the other, and it cannot be disruptive to the school day. So if it gets to the point where it is, then.
Well, we won't know that till it happens.
Well, that's a fair question, but, that's a fair statement, but I think that in some of that, it sounds like is in the regulation of what happens if you do get into a point where it's no longer a peaceful protest. But I think what we're drafting here is that we will not discourage or prohibit a peaceful protest for students who go through the proper regulation to get staff support, let the superintendent know, because that'll be in regulation, is it in a designated space, at a designated time. But students who do that, we can allow it, accommodate it, right?
And in my mind, the support that's being provided is not support of the perspective or of the purpose of the demonstration. The support that we are providing is first, foremost, and always focused on the safety of all of the students, right? And that's the support. The support is around the safety of the students.
Right, but there will be some issues that will require more support than others.
Yes.
The perception that will give because of the amount of support that will have to be given to those. You know what I'm saying?
I do understand, yeah.
Is it because it's students, and so it's understood this is school-related, otherwise you're a teenager or a middle schooler or whatever? Is this dipping into the how if it were to require students to discuss the school personnel? Is that why it's encouraged and not required? Because that's a how?
Well, that is the how. I mean,
Okay.
because what you all are doing is authorizing Dr. Whitaker to develop the policy. The regulation. The regulation will contain the specifics. If we tried to put the specifics in here, it would get unwieldy. So this is setting out, this is the governing principle, and the administration will develop the process.
So to Gina's point, because it's a good point, right? Ms. Johnson being formal up here. I think before I can get extremely comfortable with a policy, I would probably want to also know what we think the likely regulations or procedures are that are going to support it, right? And that's where I think that it's to try to address the concern that you have around what can of worms does this open. I mean, for example, if the administration is able to come with a set of procedures that we look at it and we say, okay, well, that obviously will keep it safe, and that keeps us protected, and that won't allow it to get to a certain level, and that we're comfortable with how that works, and so we're comfortable with the general policy. I would be a little bit nervous fully authorizing a policy without actually knowing what details of those regulations we're supporting. And I'm coming at it from a very much a strictly, student safety perspective, which I think is like similar to what you're thinking, Jana. Like, if we're-
Well, but, you know, if the regulation says that it's, you know, it will be okay if the students adhere to this, and this, and the district does not have to provide more than, I don't know, 5 resource officers, something like that. But then that could be perceived as unfair because there may need to be more resource officers to be able to, you know, to feel comfortable.
I would say that's situational. That's not regimented in an administrative regulation. So knowing or monitoring the situation, I would need to make decision, or any administration would need to make regulation or make decisions to provide additional support based upon the information we're gathering. What I would say is, in policy development, you all set the what to tell me, now create the regulation that goes with the what. But if you're not comfortable with, understand, this is a scenario that could easily happen in the city schools of Decatur. By not having a policy, there is almost a level of absolution, like I'm absolving myself of the, you know, the responsibility. But no, I think as a governance team, set the what, I will come with the how.
That's my point. I think what we're doing here is giving her some framework so that she can create some regulation. I think if we have nothing, then as sure as we're all sitting here, we know that something will come up and students will protest. It's happened before. It's happened here. It's happened in every school district. It is a thing. So I think if we have something that gives her some framework to go back to her team to create some of those details, like what you're mentioning, at least there's something that she can refer back to when something happens that gives her team, the principals, the SROs, all that, some guidance. But right now, we have nothing.
Right, and I'm not saying that we don't need something. All I'm saying is that I know that we have made decisions based on safety concerns. And so I would hate for a protest to be denied because of the perceived safety concerns. Followed all of the, you know, this is just gonna be too dangerous. And then it you know, it could be perceived as being unfair, right? I mean, 'cause we know that's gonna happen for sure. And around the issues that we are seeing nationally, and how do we, you know, I guess that will be in a regulation, but I can see some things, you know, what we're seeing on campuses today, you know, decisions are being made about graduations and things like that. And then, I don't let this happen, but there'll be something else that, you know, everybody perceives, you know, their issue is important as anybody else's. So that's why I'm concerned about a policy that allows it.
Yeah, I don't think the choice here is no policy or this policy. I think the choice here is the policy says you can't do it, we can't figure out a way to do it fairly. Or the policy says some variation of the language here. And I'm saying I'm open to the language here. I would be more comfortable with the language here if I actually understood what some of the regulations were that were going to support it. So I would have a comfort level that we avoid the situations that Jane is describing. Because if what Jana is describing is the way that it is going to always happen, that more controversial demonstrations get denied because there isn't a way to make it safe, or we can't put the resources behind it to make it safe, then we are sort of by default what we're going to allow to go forward versus not go forward. And somewhat unfair, and then I'm not comfortable with this policy, I would prefer no demonstrations at all. That's where I think the question is in my mind.
I think if we do that, they're just gonna protest anyway, and then they'll do it with
And
nothing.
that is a possibility, but then it's where we are in terms of as a district, in how we support that. I think that's a real possibility. I mean, that's how protests go,
Can I ask one question, like we did with the lunch policy? Is it possible, although I think I'm asking you to do more work, we got to see lots of different policies and practices. I mean, is that something you'd like to see more of? What are other school districts doing?
That'd probably be helpful.
Or is the issue the regulation?
Yeah.
Because I think maybe some of us were getting into, I think maybe some of what I hear is we're getting into the weeds of the regulation.
No, I'm on the
Yes.
policy.
Yes,
Correct me. The word safe and non-disruptive is a judgment call.
Yes,
And we are putting a policy in place where I have all the faith in Dr. Whitaker, as does Jana.
thank you.
But to have a teacher or a principal or the next superintendent say like, those are not safe kids,
Yes.
so they need to go home. These white environmentalist kids, well, we all know they're safe. Let them protest. So would a definition of safe and non-disruptive help, or you just take that out and say like, don't disrupt the school day? Maybe if we define safe and said, if you're protesting and it becomes unsafe, which means blank, blank, and blank, then we will interfere. It's in the gray area that's the problem, right? Or just.
It is the gray area, and I think Tracy's I think it would be helpful
look
to
at
see,
others.
to see some other districts.
Yeah.
Environmental, yes, because we,
looked at a lot of them, I'm happy to
yes.
with you all.
And you both know, well, you all know, I talk to people about these sorts of things, and
Sure.
I think we need to, make the best decision for Decatur. That's what I tell everyone. Just because it does or does not exist in Georgia does not mean that it is not the best for Decatur. And that's why some of this language is it's a combination of a couple different places, because it's about, going back to Great on their behalf, your guardrails and understanding what this community values. And so we want to make sure we have that. So we're not gonna rush it. I needed some initial feedback. We can get you the environmental scan that we have done nationally by benchmarking to get to where we are, as well as the legal, cursory look. But I want you to know that it's important that we do identify it and we do it right.
Yeah, right. I didn't mean to dive into the weeds on regulation. I think that the way James framed it was exactly, how do we avoid somebody sitting in your chair?
It's the same conversation you said with the policy book.
Yep.
I mean, the budget book.
Yep.
And why you wanted the policy on it. So it's the same process. Understood.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Thank you, Carrie, for jumping in there. Look forward to get to a updated policy discussion next month. Thank you all for the discussion. That concludes our pre-work session for May 14th. All right, we will begin the work session here at 3:48 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Whitaker, if you'll introduce that first presentation.
Yes, thank you, Chair Herndon. I would like to call on Mrs. Frances Holt, Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services, to provide an update on our students' social, emotional, and behavioral health.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Herman, Vice Chair Fulton, esteemed members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Gina Whitaker. I am here to share data and updates regarding the current social, emotional, and behavioral district goals. This is a follow-up to the presentation delivered in December. Throughout the presentation, you will see connections to equity related to student outcomes, as we know that these goals to address historically marginalized student populations. Embedded within the strategic accelerator, student success in all areas, are the goals to reduce the number of combined in-school and out-of-school suspensions incidents by 5% for both Black students and students with disabilities served by an IEP. To reach the goal for Black students, we must end this school year with less than 279 total incidents and 112 incidents for students with disabilities. In short, both goals are currently on track to be met. As of April,
Mrs. Holt, hold on for one
Will you give us
second.
those numbers again, please?
Yeah, I knew it was,
I'm sorry.
it didn't
No.
say yes, said,
Okay.
that's why I looked down. I knew.
To reach the goal for Black students, we must end the school year with less than 279 total incidents. That's for our Black students, and 112 for students with disabilities. In short, we are on track to meet those goals currently. As of April 26th, 186 students engaged in a violation of the Code of Conduct, which resulted in 223 incidents of ISS or OSS. Of those incidents, Black students have 215 incidents, and students with disabilities have 95. 59% of the incidents have occurred at Decatur High School, 32 at Beacon Hill Middle School, and 9% at the Upper Elementary. There was one incident of ISS and OSS, which occurred at one of the lower elementary schools. We are also tracking recidivism, or the percentage of students who are suspended, violate the code again, and receive subsequent suspension. And the percentage for recidivism is shown on this slide. As we review trends, we can celebrate that overall, the number of OSS incidents across grade bands are the lowest that they have been since the district resumed normal operations post-COVID. At Decatur High School, the number of OSS incidents assigned to Black students has decreased by 67% and by 70% for students with disabilities. There's also some positive movement in the number of students assigned to in-school suspension. Over the past 3 years, there is a marked decline in the number of incidents that resulted in ISS for both Black students and students with disabilities at Beacon Hill Middle School. A measure that has helped CSD reduce the number of suspensions is that we do have a consultation process in place to ensure that OSS is only employed when absolutely necessary to maintain a safe and orderly school environment. However, the Code of Conduct does allow school administrators to utilize up to 2 days of ISS per incident without a consultation. This matter is currently under review and is a consideration to be addressed with the revisions of the annual revisions of the Code of Conduct.
Good, just,
With an intentional focus on supporting schools so that they can support the needs of students, multiple student support services departments are in the process of implementing support initiatives that are aimed at improving school climate and proactively improving student behavior. As supported by the district PBIS coordinator and district coach, CSD schools convene monthly for their PBIS team meetings. You may recall that school PBIS teams participated in a 2-day Tier 1 training in August to learn how to build a solid Tier 1 foundation which proactively supports students' behavior and school climate. School-based PBIS teams also completed the tiered fidelity inventory in September and again in February. Results from the spring administration indicate that 6 out of 9 schools, 67%, had 70% or more of the teaming and implementation criteria in place. 7 out of 9 schools had 70% or more of the evaluation criteria in place. During October 2023, all school staff were invited to take the self-assessment survey which records the extent to which the school staff believe that Tier 1 components are in place at their school. 7 out of 9 schools had 80% or more of their staff complete the SAS, and 8 out of 9 schools rated themselves as having higher peer support, implementation, and improvement systems in place as identified by the staff. To support the work of PBIS across the district staff provide monthly feedback and one-to-one coaching to the PBIS teams, as well as the school-based staff who are supporting students with Tier 3 behavior plans. Recently, school teams were also given the opportunity to participate in PBIS action planning days with the district staff to view school data and plan for next school year. Our schools are excited about PBIS, and the focus is ongoing on progress for next year, which we will be focusing on building cohesion in the program district-wide, including the desire to implement and knowledge of PBIS best practices among our educators. And earlier this year, you approved mid-year funds to support the implementation of PBIS across the district. The schools assessed their gaps in PBIS support, and with those funds, they were able to purchase an array of different items to aid students in staying engaged and displaying positive behavior. So thank you to Dr. Whitaker for your support. The Behavior Assessment System for Children, third edition, Behavioral and Emotional Screening System, or the BASC 3-BEST, is what CSD started using last school year to screen for social, emotional, and behavioral health risk in students. The data from this screener creates an evidence-based pathway for students to receive additional support, provide information that helps schools to focus their effort and time and resources on students who have the greatest needs. And it helps schools in making big-picture programming decisions. So embedded within Strategic Accelerator, building and sustaining an engaging and inclusive culture is the goal to increase the student participation on the BASC 3-BEST from the initial 85% participation rate last spring to 90% this school year. This goal has been met. While the numbers suggest that students were at lower risk in the spring than they were in the fall, it is important to note that the BASC 3-BEST is a screener and only measures a snapshot in time, and risk can fluctuate from day to day. Following each screening administration, the members of the school support team follows up with the student and family for students who rated elevated or extremely elevated for risk. The reports have gone home for the spring administration as of April. So when a student is referred for support, there are a variety of support options available. Student wellness within CSD is offered on a continuum, and students are provided support based on their needs. The majority of students can adequately be supported at Tier 1, and those supports include the supports that are provided for all students: universal screening, PBIS, classroom lessons taught by the school council. Some students require more support than Tier 1. Those may include crisis intervention, skill building, small group counseling sessions. And then Tier 3 supports may include long-term individual sessions, substance use counseling, and grief counseling, just to name a few. Prior to this school year, CSD did not have a student-centered approach to suicide awareness and prevention, so we have added Signs of Suicide. Signs of Suicide is a research-informed suicide awareness prevention program that teaches students and staff how to act, acknowledge, care, and tell when a student expresses suicidal thoughts. It is designed for students in grades 6 through 12. During multiple staff trainings in February, more than 250 teachers, counselors, clinicians, and staff at the middle and high school were trained how to act. Teachers and counselors then helped facilitate the lessons to the students. So in preparation for next year, the district team is exploring options of how to implement mental health awareness at the lower and upper elementary levels. Of course, all students have access to their school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and the clinician at the Student Center. So enhancing and expanding this robust menu of support options that are readily available to students and their families is the direction of our Department, Student Services, for next year. This will be part of the work that needs to be done to bring about a comprehensive SEL framework to CSD. Okay, so in conclusion, this has been an exciting and engaging year. Not only did we acquire the Director of Restorative Practices, Behavior Support, and Wraparound Services in the fall, the Coordinator for Wraparound Services, the department has been reorganized, and I am very humbled to serve in this new role. Some of the things that we have done this year: first, social-emotional learning has been assessed, and we have identified gaps in the implementation across the district. Administrators, school principals have engaged in more than 100 discipline consultations to explore alternatives to suspension and use restorative practices. In January, we launched a revamp of ISS for the middle and high schools to the SPACE, which stands for Students Promoting Accountability, Clarity, and Empowerment. So under the direction of a trained ISS facilitator, SPACE is a proactive setting designed to help students problem solve, develop appropriate school and classroom behaviors, and reduce the need for subsequent removals. We've also brought in CT3, No Nonsense Nurturer, which was introduced to schools in January through an all-day professional learning opportunity for teachers that helps teachers utilize kindness and compassion to build firm boundaries with students and hold the scholars to the high expectations while remaining culturally relevant. Communities in Schools, our new partner, has hit the ground running, and they are providing support to students and their families. The caseloads have been established. All principals are reporting that the support they receive from CIS is exceptional, and that they recognize that their traditional supports just are not able to meet those. For example, recently they helped with literacy initiatives at the elementary level, and even a family that lost their home in a fire. So just a few days ago, in an effort to bridge the gap between student mental health and school success, the district team hosted a parent empowerment workshop on mental health. Very positive feedback was received from that, and we look forward to more workshops in the future. So yes, it has been an engaging year, and we look forward to continuing the work and expanding this in the future for our students. I will pause here for any questions.
A quick clarifying, 92% of all students, 92% for the BESC.
The goal was to have 90% participate. You said 90.
Well, we got to
It's that
92%, but my question is it particular grade levels? Is it all of our students that are being given?
Look like it's 100.
So we have added years, grade bands
Okay,
since last year. Next year, we will have all grade bands.
okay,
So it's of the grade bands that we've assessed this year.
okay.
Can we go to that slide really quickly? Because it looked like it was 100 students, but I might have kind of been that one. Yeah, so 100 students are screened. It looks like 80, 15, and 5, 85, 12, and 3. So that's, I mean, 100 students doesn't sound like a lot. Am I reading those numbers wrong?
I think the numbers are 3%, not 3 kids on at the bottom.
Okay.
Those are
Oh, I got it. Percentages.
The 92% is 1,165 students.
Okay.
Can we go to slide, sorry, James, are you,
No, I have others, but you feel free to start us off.
slide 3, if I could? So, I don't think this is a bad thing. It looks like if you just add the numbers up, it looks like a lot of what was going to OSS in the high school just shifted to ISS. Is that the right way to interpret it, right? So, and is it right to, I don't want to say assume, but like some of the things that you're doing with the ISS training and putting the space in place, those are also there to try to bring the ISS. So we've moved people out of OSS into ISS, which is an improvement, because at least it's adjacent to learning. And now the goal is with some of the stuff that we're doing in ISS to bring the ISS numbers down as well. Is that kind of the path?
That is correct, and to do that with the space, but also to do that with our behavioral coaching and intervention, because, you know, once the students are in the building, that's step one, but then what do we do to help let them grow from their behavior decisions, and also how to intervene appropriately.
Great, okay, thank you then.
Can you, clarify, who coordinates or does those one-on-ones with the PBIS? You said that the PBIS instructors report ultimately to someone within the school, I guess within Decatur Higher Education Health?
The schools have PBIS teams, and their principal is a part of that team.
Okay.
But we have the district coach and director of restorative practices. That's our new staff member. But we also have our behavior interventionists as a part of that team for the district. So there's 2 people at the district level that help provide that coaching, feedback, guide schools through the PBIS implementation.
So there's just one PBIS team, like within each individual school?
Okay.
And you said that our end goal is to be at 279 incidents for Black students to go down to 279.
We don't want to be over that number. That was our number from last year.
Okay,
That was our baseline.
that was our baseline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then, and our goal is to come down 5% of that.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, how many incidents?
I did it wrong, hold on.
So,
I do know that.
the goal is to be less than 279 for Black students and to be less than 112 for students with disabilities.
Right.
It was 290.
Those are incidents, reported incidents.
Correct. That's OSS and ISS combined.
Do
So,
you know how many of those are the same students?
well, that was one of my questions.
43%.
That's the recidivism.
So, I just wanna make sure I'm understanding, so, we wanna, we wanna reduce it by at least 5%, and that will take us down to 279. We will start off at around 293. That'd be 15 incidents less. And so, yeah, I was wondering, I don't know if you would know that, like, of those 15 incidents, how many of those are the same students? I know
I think the idea of looking at recidivism specifically for Black students, that's what, you affectionately call your frequent flyers. Really talking to them, which is one of the things that that we did when we were looking at the feedback to get around the student code of conduct, to say, what's the barrier and how behavior coaching and the other supports, why are you not responding to it, or not responding in the way we would desire you to respond to it. In that level of qualitative feedback, it is what, I've shared around non-engagement. Teacher just doesn't ask me to step up to the plate. There are multiple reasons from a qualitative standpoint when asking those that do make up the recidivism rate. Because if you go to the next slide for me, wrong direction. What I shared is that graph 1 and graph 2, from a high school perspective, is basically the same arc. That blue arc is the same. So to really understand where we are now and to say, how do you decrease that number? Not saying that a child that has violated a student code of conduct does not receive a consequence, but how do we really ensure that we are creating the conditions where they won't? And that's where it is engagement in classroom. It is the expectations in classroom. It is the no-nonsense nurture relationships between adults and students. Those are some of the things that we have to build the staff's capacity in, as well as obviously around bias and things of that nature. But when asking the students said that's the reason why I keep coming back. That's why I'm a frequent flyer in here. And that's what we have to really start to address.
Because I don't want to diminish, we look like we're clearly going to make our goal, and I think that is something to celebrate. But I was wondering, when I asked the question, it's like 5% seemed like such a small number. You know,
It's a small number, but 5% is incremental change. If you are doing anything beyond a level of incremental change, I would question the level of fidelity you were using with that instrument, or whatever instrument there is.
So potentially our goal, our number, our percentage would increase for next year.
Yeah, it would be, give me another 5%. You can, if you drastically do anything, I begin to question the fidelity of implementation. If you just, because you're talking about humans, where it's, yeah.
But you're thinking of it as cumulative, so another 5% means
On
10%
top of-
off where we were, another 5% means another, like, so you build. I did have
Which goes to your KPI.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you're talking about a KPI of how do we build and sustain an engaging and inclusive culture, which is one of the strategic accelerators. So now you're going into the conversation of what we're going to talk about on the 28th, which is what is our baseline, and then that's the key performance indicator to determine if we're improving in that said area.
Well, I have like a super data fussy question, so I apologize in advance. But when we talk about that percent reduction, I want to see it on a normalized basis, right? Because if that student population is shrinking, then you're benefiting from the smaller population, which you shouldn't get the benefit from that. If that population is growing, then you're underselling the actual changes that you're doing. So you want to make sure that that percent reduction is on a population norm. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so, yeah.
The end,
Yeah.
what I like to call the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, in terms of being flagged by the state, what is that the number that we need to be in order to?
So that is calculated, that's a risk ratio, and they take our number of students for the subgroups, and then they divide it by the total number of students, and they do multiple divisions, if you will, because then they give us that risk ratio, and they say you have to be under 3.0, right? That's the expectation. So this number will help with that risk ratio, but it may not ultimately lead us to that under 3.0 just yet. But it's progress, as Dr. Whitaker said, incrementally towards it.
In graph 3 and 4, those are gonna be, ISS students who got 3 days or better, because you said 2 days or less is not reported. So those are gonna be students who got 3 days or more.
2 days is still reported, it's just that currently, they don't have, the administrators do not have to call anyone to have a consultation on that number of days.
So are the kids who got 1 day or more in that graph, or are these only students who got 3 or greater days of ISS?
1 day or more, any ISS.
Any ISS
Okay.
in that, okay.
I have a question about PBIS. I anecdotally, as a parent, have started to see it becoming more a part of the classroom and the teachers that, you know, positive enforcement and a yoga class and third grade teachers all about it, stuff like that. I guess my first part is, how much do we do with new teachers who are coming into the district in terms of training from you all? Is that on the team? Is that central office? And then, my second, well, I was gonna ask the second question. What level are we doing, just like informing the parents and stuff like that about PBIS?
So with new team members, during new staff orientation this current school year,
Yeah.
there was a session that we did with the new team members.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't there, but, you know, the team did with the new teachers.
Okay.
They are also, enlisted as the school PBIS teams are doing their local training and activities.
Okay.
For this new teacher orientation, we also have, well, not new teacher, during pre-planning, we actually have sessions for new teachers and all teachers that are gonna be focused on positive behavior, done by the district team.
Okay. So is there a process in place then to follow up? So if I'm a new ninth grade English teacher, I sit through this training, is there ever any time where someone comes into my classroom and just for the PBIS purposes to make sure that I'm implementing it with fidelity or something? And I know that's an in the weeds question, but.
The school PBIS team.
That's
who handles that. And then also they would be the ones to communicate with parents.
Okay.
Who the school and the principal would
Okay.
do that communication with their families.
Okay.
Chair Herndon and the board, I want to make clear that it's so important that all children are safe and that they're seen. And that does not mean that we're not going to provide a consequence. It just simply means we're going to provide that consequence according to the Code of Conduct and the Restorative Practices Handbook. Next year, I will ensure that that Code of Conduct is actually approved by the Board of Education. So it will be part of your board management oversight process. That's part of what you'll see at the retreat. Additionally, the wellness continuum is undergirded by a comprehensive social and emotional learning framework, which is one of the performance objectives of our strategic plan as well. So I will bring that comprehensive SEL framework to you with a curriculum, and it's going to look and feel similar to what literacy did, where we will have materials to review, things for the community to engage in. It's not just, this is what we're doing behind the curtain, but it's really the way in which the community will be involved.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Holt. Mental health is a priority for the board, and we look forward to a social emotional learning framework and plan. Dr. Whitaker, next presentation.
Yes, Chair Herndon, Mr. Melton, Chief of Information Services, will provide the annual update on the division.
Chair Herndon, Vice Chair Dr. Stolten, esteemed members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Whitaker, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to take a few minutes to give you a snapshot of the Information Services Department, also known as IT, the Tech Department, the Instructional Technology Team, or the computer folks. I'll talk with you about who we are, what we do, how well we're doing it, where we're going, and why we are so excited to accelerate into the second year of all data. A snapshot of our team with a few numbers. Our department has 14 personnel, including a DHS graduate behind me, several CSD parents, and technology alumni from Apple, the GBI, KIPP Atlanta, and Fulton County Schools. Most of our staff schools. The Wilson Center IT team consists of 4 coordinators, a half-time admin assistant, and me. Regardless of everyone's background and worksite, our department is squarely focused on what is best for students and how we can support staff in deriving positive student outcomes. One of the values we hold is that even though we're not teachers, every adult on our team is prospectively some kids go to grown-up. Our team values engagement in the school. Our team includes the voice of the College Heights Spirit Video voiceover, several crew surprise readers, DHS and Beacon Hill work-based learning mentors, and our Tally Street Tech just took the boys soccer team to the state championship. Most of this team's work happens pretty quietly. Reliable internet during testing, active panels that let kids and teachers draw colorful illustrations and diagrams that just work, the ability to take attendance every period, to make a phone call, receive an email, y'all's favorite activity, and the general function of over 14,000 hardware assets and dozens of online systems. With our student computers, we have 1.47 modern computers per student in our fleet, which is very close to the Metro ratio of 1.38 per student. When someone needs help with a ticket, perhaps to request technology support for an event, or to ask for help with their computer, prompts us to pull emails, users submit a ticket to ask for help, and we've taken in 5,157 from on behalf of 83% of staff. The most frequent number of tickets per employee this year is just 1. When tickets come in, our target is to respond within 24 hours and resolve the requests, unless there's an agreed upon reason to delay, within 48 hours. 94% of the time we hit that response target, and 88% of the time we hit the resolution. Every time we close a ticket, the customer gets a survey that takes 5 seconds and 3 clicks to complete. Only about 12% of employees click through and give us feedback, but of those staff, we have a 98.5% 4 or 5-star satisfaction rate. And every one of those, about 14 tickets this year that got 3 or fewer stars has had a follow-up conversation from the member of the team to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to rebuild the relationship. In addition to these figures, we use other metrics and data sources to evaluate our performance. I mentioned earlier that we compare favorably to the Metro RESA when it comes to modern student device ratios. We likewise tend to be close to the median and average levels for metro area districts when it comes to staffing ratios for schools. We also measure our system uptime, bandwidth, age of device fleet against a report issued each fall by the Council of the Great City Schools. It lags by a year, but it's still a great benchmark for us. We consistently rank in the top half and often the top quartile. And most of these measures are available from our department webpage, and I'll have an address up for that at the end of the presentation for you all and anyone listening in. The Chromebooks in front of you, the projector over my head, the laptops and phones my colleagues behind me are ignoring because I have their rapt attention are all very easy to see. But less visible and just as critical is the network connecting them and the security systems in place to protect our environments and the precious data to which it enables access. In October, I presented a snapshot of CSD's cybersecurity status, and you saw this feelings-invoking visual metaphor that we remember really from a few years ago to explain our defense in-depth posture to maintain our security. The IT team has made enhancements this year to every layer of the defense model. I shared in October that we leverage continuous external monitoring with an industry-leading service provided by the Georgia Department of Education. And I'm pleased to share with you that our external monitoring score continues to be high. We are labeled as an advanced performer. We've also begun weekly scanning and reporting by the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And in October, you may recall, you endorsed a major security project requiring multi-factor authentication, highly effective ward against phishing cyber attacks for all employees' primary account credentials. As board member Oud said, quote, to the extent that there are minor inconveniences that we require in order to be more secure, it's all for very, very good reasons. Since then, a project team of IT leaders, support staff, and instructors have focused on building employee awareness of the need for multi-factor authentication, developing their desire to participate in the change, giving them the know-how of several ways they can enroll in MFA, and coaching them so they have the ability to enroll themselves. Since our awareness campaign began in January, as of this morning, 80% of employees have enrolled in multi-factor authentication. 100% of Westchester certificated and non-certificated staff have enrolled. Oakers, Claremont, College Heights, and DHS staff are above 90%, and we add people every day. MFA is, in fact, one component of a broader authentication project scope. Another component is training staff on what makes for a good passphrase, term and idea that replaces decades-old thinking about passwords. To help employees build understanding of what makes for a good passphrase, we solicited public service announcements, posters, and other materials from students. We received over 60 submissions, and the elementary and secondary winners and runners-up submissions are in the stack in front of you. They're paper clips together. 3 of these are from elementary-age students. 1 of them is from a middle schooler. Take them home, share them with your family. It works at work as well as in the household. And they'll be recognized by name later this year. We are on track to complete this critical safety project on time and about 10% of the budget. Our authentication project is one of many we've undertaken this school year, with several irons still in the fire. These are some of the larger projects and initiatives the IST done with the school year. Not listed here are many recurring IT operations, such as managing those tickets and the inventory, patch management, and a host of others. Note too that several of these projects have yielded new operations necessary to maintain new services, although we have a few areas where we've been able to retire systems and processes. Most items here involve a partnership with other departments and school leaders, with operations for new power supplies, to train the trainer facilitation with media specialists for new content filter scanning. And that really is our day-to-day. Every department is our partner, and every department is our customer. And likewise, if you were to ask us where we in the technology team see ourselves in the strategic plan, they're everywhere. While the bulk of our work, I had to try. While the bulk of our work neatly fits under organizational effectiveness and excellence, our heart is in student success in all areas. The focus of equitable access, experiences, and outcomes for students is what differentiates a school district IT team from a Delta or a Coca-Cola. And one of the most significant ways our team can support educators' work is continued investment in interoperable data systems. This fall, we reinvested in Tableau as a tool to create and share visualizations to aid in telling our story and for decision makers to make the right call for kids. This work is in partnership between members of the IS team, the Director of Assessment and Accountability, and feedback from a host of district and school leaders. And after reconnecting the Tableau plumbing, so to speak, staff began soliciting and prioritizing a backlog of Viz requests. Quickly became apparent that we need additional support to help not only with simply creating Vizes, but to help establish the communication language for how they're presented, the processes to ingest and evaluate requests, and insights into how we scale maintenance of the data infrastructure with expanding use of Tableau, including public-facing Vizes on the district website. Fortunately, we found a partner in Slalom. This project team for CSD includes a former Atlanta Public Schools technologist who participated in their data visualization transformation several years ago. There are a lot of Tableau consultancies, but there are few that have specific K-12 expertise, let alone in Georgia. Last month, principals and other district leaders had a chance to review and provide feedback on about a dozen visits, covering behavior, attendance, class size, nurse visits, enrollment, and assessment performance. The Tableau team anticipates those and others being dialed in for opening next year, along with a public-facing presence to help current and prospective families and community members gain insight into who our kids are and how well we are fulfilling our district mission. Our work with Tableau will continue into next year, along with a host of many other initiatives. You've heard a theme from me today. I hope it's this, that our jobs might be in IT, but our work in people, and continuous growth for our team, continuous stewardship of the equipment our customers rely on, and ever mindfulness of supporting the highly qualified, highly caring educators who support our students every day. I invite all of you and all those listening in to stop by our department webpage. From there, you'll find links to our own performance dashboard, which is updated regularly. There are resources there for families to help shepherd their own household technology journeys, guidance on how families can access the campus portal, and many other useful tidbits. Thank you all for the opportunity to share with you a bit about the information services team, who we are, what we've been up to, where we're going, and I'm happy to take any of your questions.
What other quotes of mine do you have written down somewhere from that?
In the booth back there,
Yeah.
and everything is on there.
This is very helpful.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if any of our kids are, raise your hand if you're here for the poster contest. Hey,
Well, you can take the credit.
when we do photos, I'm sure there'll be an
Yeah, they'll be
opportunity.
there for later.
Yeah, they'll be here for pictures. Thank you. We incentivize participation too with the Chick-fil-A gift card, not district funds, community funded, and that was a driver too. I think we get some. What else can I do for you?
No.
All right.
Thank you, Eston, as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Melton. Interoperable data systems. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. We will get there. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Melton, all that behind-the-scenes work in technology. Dr. Whitaker, we have one more presentation before we start the school board.
Yes, and it is the Human Services, Retention and Staffing Update, and I am not Adina Walker, the Chief of Human Resources. I am Dr. Whitaker. So I will give you a very brief snapshot of where we are for our human HR staffing report for the month of May as we continue to focus on cultivating and retaining high-quality professionals. This is a monthly presentation that will keep you updated on our district staffing as we prepare for the upcoming year. Keep going. All right. Here you show our current certified vacancies for the 2024-2025 school year. As explained last month, when we refer to certified vacancies, we look at classroom teachers and certified personnel that directly impact instruction. As of May 9th, we currently have 26 certified job vacancies across the district, and we've broken them down based upon their locations, where the locations are present, the vacancies are present. We have indicated the number of vacancies at each location. If it has decreased, it's indicated by a downward green arrow. So going down is good. Increase shows an upward red arrow, or stayed the same, represented by a yellow dash. I am pleased to share that the current vacancy rate has dropped from 6% to 4.9%, which indicates that we are moving in the right direction. We have successfully hired 17 new teachers and are on track to have fully staffed teams for the first day of school. The HR department is working closely with school administrators to schedule interviews and process the new hires in an efficient and timely manner. The CSD experience is all about how we create the best experience for our staff to retain them from the time they are hired until the time they retire. One of our primary strategies for recruiting is to build relationships with secondary partners for our pre-service educators. So we are proud to report that the University Partners Day Luncheon held last Monday was a tremendous success. We had specialists from several universities, Kennesaw State, Mercer, Georgia State, Clark Atlanta, University of West Georgia, and our newest partner, Moreland University. During the luncheon, we showcased the teachers who hosted pre-service educators this year, and the student teachers shared their experiences with our district. At your seat, you'll find the Learn and Earn program flyer. As some of you know, I will always be a teacher, and I wish I had the opportunity to substitute while I was earning my credential in school. So at the luncheon, I emphasized the importance of those partnerships with the post-secondary institutions, as it is also a performance objective in our strategic plan, all indicator. That afternoon, the partners toured our schools where principals and student ambassadors highlighted the unique features in CSD and the strengths of our school. Overall, the event confirmed that our school district is an excellent place for educators to start their teaching careers. The day concluded with our current staff meeting with those universities to explore post-secondary opportunities to receive advanced degrees, and for some, even at a discounted rate. Tonight, we are delighted to celebrate our retiring educators and support staff who concluded their tenure with us in the CSD experience. This year, we have 14 honorees who will be recognized later tonight for all of their dedicated service. So board, we will continue to monitor those vacancies and fill them. Additionally, we will provide the state of HR on August 13th, along with the first day of school summary. Until then, monthly updates will be provided in board meetings regarding our recruitment efforts.
No questions. Hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker, and stepping in for Adina. That was great. We look forward to the monthly updates included until first bell on July 30th. This concludes our work session for today. We're about 5 minutes behind, but I think for board privilege, we're going to give us about 5 minutes to warm up and use the restroom. We'll start back at 4:40 p.m. Work session is adjourned. All right. We'll now call this meeting to order at 4:40 p.m. We ask that you silence all cell phones at this time. We'll begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I ask that everyone join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Now I ask all who are able to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our mission is to inspire and enable student growth through meaningful and engaging learning experiences supported by highly qualified and caring educators in a safe and inviting environment. First agenda item, board members, I need a motion to revise tonight's agenda to add an executive session item to consent. Do I have a motion to approve today's amended agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Board member Oates makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Council Davis seconds the motion. Any discussion about the amended agenda? Excellent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously to amend the agenda to add the executive session item to consent. Minutes from the previous board meetings. We have a motion to approve April's regular board minutes. Thank you, board member Anderson makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, multiple seconds. We'll give that one to Dr. Sultan. Any discussion about last month's minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Tonight's order is a little different to allow us to spend some time recognizing our retirees at the end of the meeting, so we might receive them at the conclusion. Therefore, we're going to begin instead with the superintendent's report. Dr. Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. With less than 2 weeks until graduation and also the last day of school, we've almost made it through another school year. That means that our students are full of mixed emotions, as I see some of them around the room today. They are excited about the summer break. Also, graduating students, they might be a little uncertain about their path forward. But either way, the emotional roller coaster is very exciting at this point in the year. I am certain everyone in this room is in some sort of countdown, but I want everyone to know you definitely deserve that time away, that time of reflection, and that well-deserved rest. But we're not there just yet. So you can't check out on me. We must continue to make every minute count. And I challenge us all to stay focused on our mission to inspire and enable our students to be successful through meaningful learning, engagement, and also their experiences. It is equally important to each class, each school, each department, to take the moment to evaluate the strides that we have made this year, and also the opportunities for the potential moving forward. In addition to ending another school year, May is the month to celebrate the importance of principals. And those are our principals from birth to high school. I see Mr. Wiseman out there. And so we celebrate you. We know that you are here and you help us to create a better City Schools of Decatur for all of its students and for all of its staff. This month, we also joined the American Nurses Association in celebrating the incredible nurses who understand the link between health and also learning to make that positive difference for our students every single day. In May, we also honor our teachers. Last week, I recorded a video message expressing my sincere appreciation for our teachers and everything that they do to ensure positive student outcomes for all students in CSD. Additionally, I sent a special email announcement to teachers extending my appreciation to the Board of Education for tentatively approving the FY25 budget. The recommendation for the FY25 budget includes a 7 to 14% salary increase for teachers and a step adjustment for those eligible teachers. The proposed salary schedules were attached to that email, fulfilling my commitment to improving staff compensation as your new superintendent. That has been one of my key priorities, only second to ensuring we enhance student outcomes. So, I'm also pleased that our budget reflects a minimum increase of 5% for all CSD staff. While I have issued a challenge for us to finish the school year strong, the entire month of May is dedicated to mental health awareness, reminding us of that vital role that mental health has for everyone's well-being. Mental health truly matters. People, please be aware that support and resources are available to our students and to our staff in overcoming challenges to successfully crossing this year's finish line. So, as I round out my first year as superintendent in the City Schools of Decatur, I cannot thank my advisory councils enough. With their feedback and their engagement, I could not have served this entire Decatur community as I have. As I call the name of the advisory council, please stand to be recognized, and then you can be seated. So, the first, if you are a member of the System Charter Leadership Team Advisory Council, as the SCLT, please stand to be recognized. Do we have any SCLT members here? Yes. Thank you so much. For these advisories, we meet monthly, very candid feedback, and receive the same information that you do as a board on a monthly basis. For the second council, this is a council that I established because, yes, we do have the SCLT, but there is another parent organization that thrives in the City Schools of Decatur, and they too need a place at the table. And that is the PTO/PTA Advisory Council. So for our parents who are on that council, please stand and be recognized. Appreciate you tremendously. They came with a lot of ideas in the ways in which we can make the City Schools of Decatur even better. So now I'm going to tell you that this next group, I'm going to be honest, I am partial to them. I am. And that is the elementary Student Advisory Council. So second, third, fourth, fifth graders, not only stand, but come towards the aisle so everyone can see you, because some of you are really short. When the part that I love the most about this council, and at the end, of course, they had to take it out the door, as board, as you know, they did. And when asked, what was the one thing that went so well? What do I need to do again next year? What was your favorite thing? They said learning about the budget.
Oh, wow.
I love every single one.
To know that our students, as young as they are, were able to understand variance, understand compensation, and how all of those decisions, all those presentations I showed you guys, this is where we do it on a monthly basis. So I appreciate every one of you, and I know your future is bright, and because your future is bright, all of our futures will be bright. So thank you. All right, and now, of course, we also have the secondary support student advisory council. They were just as fun, and their candid feedback was always candid. So please stand so you can be recognized. Astrid? Yes. And then we have the support staff advisory council. So everyone knows about the teacher advisory council, but not every person is a certified teacher. And truly, it's the support staff that help this district run. And so they too had a seat at the table, representative from multiple different divisions. And so for those individuals, please stay. And some are actually still working because and to our true heartbeat, where the magic truly happens, which is in the classroom. To all teachers who served on this year's Teacher Advisory Council, please stand. And be I know one thing about cats, they do bring the questions. And so I love the opportunity to engage with our teachers so that they too will understand what it is that we do here every single day. So I appreciate, once again, our monthly engagements and look forward to meeting your successors in the fall, because you probably won't serve again. So I definitely appreciate each and every engagement that we have had this school year, especially in my first year, learning and listening to the city schools of Decatur. Board, I am eagerly anticipating tonight's introduction of our first ever student member of the board during our traditional board recognition section, and also to fully inform you and the community of what this process included. I call on Chief of Staff, Mrs. Amanda Lynch.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Board Chair Herndon, Vice Chair Dr. Stolten, esteemed members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Whitaker. Today, I am extremely delighted to provide you with an update on our initiative to amplify student voice by creating the position of the Student Board of Education. Having a student serve on the Board of Education was an innovation that was envisioned early in this administration together with the board. Student representation on the board is an objective that truly advances our strategic accelerator of building and sustaining an engaging and inclusive culture. Engaging the student body and seeking its input and feedback regarding the district's educational programs and activities is vital to achieving the district's vision and mission and carrying out our strategic plan. We worked with GSBA and legal and gathered feedback from students, staff, and community members to ultimately develop Regulation BAB-R1, Student Board of Education Representative. This regulation, if you remember, included the purpose and description of the representative role, its roles and responsibilities, and the election process. It was shared at the January meeting. As a reminder, it seeks to amplify student voice, enhance communication between the board and the students it serves, enhance collaboration between the board and the students it serves, teach students the importance of civic involvement, and expose students to Board of Education functions, preparing them for possible future civil service. Since BAB-R1 was shared in January, staff has been busy to turn the regulation into reality. I'd like to thank Ms. Courtney Burnett, Coordinator of Legislative and Community Affairs, and Mr. Wes Hatfield, Assistant Principal at Decatur High School, for leading staff and students to ensure a successful launch of this new initiative. We continue to prioritize student voice and input in the process by meeting with representatives from student organizations and the Students Advisory Council. Forms had to be developed, details of the process needed to be determined, and a tight timeline had to be implemented. Students and families received information about the opportunity through, for students, a presentation during their win time, all student emails, and school newsletters. Ultimately, we had 13 amazing students who qualified for candidacy, 7 current juniors for the representative position, and 6 current sophomores for the apprenticeship position, which will then become the representative for their senior year. These candidates created posters, made campaign videos, and met with classmates during lunch. With the high number of candidates, a runoff election was necessary for both positions. And now, I'm honored to present to you the very first Student Board of Education representative and apprentice as elected by their classmates. For representative, we have Sophie Delana. Sophie is a current junior and a member of our state champion cross-country and track team. Sophie expressed a vision in her video of establishing multiple task forces. Surely this will help amplify student voice. For apprentice, we have Nia Batra. Nia is a current sophomore and works with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition. Nia collected input and suggestions from her classmates that she addressed in her campaign video. Remember that Nia will serve as the apprentice for the 24-25 school year, and then will move into the representative position for the 25-26 school. We are very excited about onboarding these 2 students in their new roles. As we move forward, we will work with them to gather feedback and reflect on this year's process. This will support our commitment to continuous improvement. We will also be working to establish the curriculum and provide training for our elected students. In fact, the Georgia School Board Association holds annual training in June, and our representative will be able to attend. Finally, we heard from the board last semester that there is an appetite to learn more about creating a true voting student member of the board. As part of Sophie and Nia's roles, they will be tasked to support researching the feasibility of this initiative. Finally, I want to acknowledge that we will recognize all 13 students who took the initiative and ran for these new student board positions later tonight during our student recognition time. Thank you.
Thank you.
One final announcement. The State Board of Education approved our amended charter contract last Thursday. You may remember that the document approved last year by the State Board of Education included our former charter's innovative features. The new innovations align with our All-In Decatur strategic plan, and they are what you just heard. Amplify student voice by creating the student representation within the Board of Education, leveraging our community partnerships to implement a long-term eco-friendly facility plan by expanding early learning opportunities, establish a learn and earn apprenticeship that certifies students and teachers in the science of reading, and then ensure students are college and career future ready by aligning our CTAE pathways K-12 to the City of Decatur workforce development needs. We look forward to uploading to our website the amended executed contract later this week. Chair Herndon, for all those that are here, that completes my report. And you can obviously stay to hear his report, but I don't want you to make you feel that you need to. I don't want them to say they're jealous, but they can.
Totally understood.
That completes my report.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Now, for the chair's report, I want to, on behalf of the board, thank you all in the community for continuing to be all in for CSD. As always, we join the administration in recognizing this month's celebrations. I want to add that in May, we join the national celebrations of the heritage, Asian American and Pacific Islanders, and Jewish Americans throughout history. As a school district, we remain committed to cultivating inclusive environments where every student is seen, heard, and successful. Like you, our excitement for graduating seniors increases as we draw closer to commencement on May 22nd. This annual event serves as the pinnacle, culmination of this school year. We congratulate all graduating seniors. Look forward to formally celebrating with you next week. Following this executive session earlier today, we began tonight's board meeting with pre-work, where we continued and concluded our book study on Great on Their Behalf. It provided a practical guide for school boards to adopt and maintain student outcome-focused mindset. We provided feedback on initial draft policy for demonstrations and strikes. And during the work session, there were 3 presentations with updates on student support services, state of information, and a monthly report on HR retention and staffing. All of the presentations are available on Assembly, and they represent our collective commitment to increasing transparency of organizational operations. Tonight's agenda did have a slight change, and our student and staff recognitions will be held just before public comments, time permitting. We certainly look forward to applauding the many accomplishments of our students and staff later this evening. Dr. Whitaker mentioned in her remarks, the board is excited to meet and welcome our first student representatives on the City of Decatur Board of Education. We're equally looking forward to meeting the second representative who will apprentice in preparation to serve the following school year. Following my comments, the board will take action on several important consent items, such as student travel. We'll review a few leases and the food service management policy for approval. Perhaps the most important item on the regular meeting agenda this month is the recommendation of the FY25 budget, final approval, and the adoption of the mill rate. The board tentatively approved this budget last month. As I've stated, since we began this process in November, the full board recognizes the importance of the district's current and future fiscal sustainability. We equally understand our role in maintaining organizational efficiency, attracting and retaining high-quality staff. I want to thank the community for your feedback online and during our community meetings and the public hearings and the online comments, which I enjoyed reading. We believe this budget reflects our strategic 5-year goals of 1, creating safe and positive learning environments, 2, ensuring fiscal sustainability, 3, cultivating, retaining high-quality professionals through a competitive compensation package, and 4, providing equitable access and opportunities for all students to reach their highest potential, particularly our traditionally underserved. Additionally, this budget encompasses our commitment to hiring and retaining the best in all areas and equity for all, including staff. While compensating teachers was the priority this budget year, it's been my priorities and selected, we began evaluating compensation for all staff. Teachers can dedicate their time and energy to teaching because of the support provided by groups at the Wilson Center staff and the school departments. Like any major business, they work behind the scenes. We hire our professionals in HR, ensure our facilities are safe and maintained, our children are transported, fed, and healthy in operations, pay the bills and finance, keep the utilities on, compensate staff, and purchase the necessary supplies and equipment. And we oversee all things technology, including internet access, cybersecurity, campus portal, learning technology, information sharing, such as Google Classroom and Infinite Campus. They determine the curriculum for instruction and facilitate teacher training and teaching and learning. They provide student support services such as counseling, English as a second language, federal programs, interventions, that list could go on and on. And finally, implementing effective governance, managing student registrations, district and school level engagements, and crisis management, all to support our teachers and schools so that they can focus on the classroom and student achievement, just to name a few of what they do. I want to especially thank Dr. Whitaker, CFO, Dr. Lanita Broom, and HR Chief Adina Walker, who worked closely with the board to answer all of our many questions on the budget all the way back in November. In addition to the budget, we've talked a lot about safety the last few months. Last month, the board heard presentations about new safety tools the administration is implementing district-wide next year. And with summer quickly approaching, we see an increase in serious incidents involving youth, both in and out of school. CSD and the board have agreed to partner with nationally acclaimed nonprofit organization called Be Smart for Kids. The campaign includes circulating flyers and posters to schools and families, raising awareness that secure gun storage at home can save lives. I would like to invite Vice Chair Sultan to read the school board's secure storage notification resolution, if you don't mind.
All right. Whereas evidence strongly suggests that secure firearm storage is an essential component to any effective strategy for schools and student safety. Whereas an estimated 4.6 million American children live in households with at least one loaded and unlocked firearm. Whereas every year, roughly 350 children under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. That's nearly one unintentional shooting per day, and 70% of these incidents take place inside a home. Whereas another 1,200 children and teens die by gun suicide each year, often using guns belonging to a family member. And whereas in incidents of gun violence on school grounds, 75 were current students or recent graduates. Whereas research shows that secure firearm storage practices are associated with up to an 85% reduction in the risk of self-inflicted and unintentional firearm injuries among children and teens. Whereas the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center recommends that the importance of age-appropriate firearm storage because 75% of school shooters use firearms acquired from the home and close relatives. Whereas across the country, lawmakers, community members, and local leaders are working together to implement public awareness campaigns such as the Be Smart program, which is endorsed by the National PTA and which encourages secure gun storage practices and highlights the public safety risk of unsecured guns. Whereas school districts across the country have begun to proactively send materials home to parents and guardians, informing them of firearm storage laws and firearm secure storage best practices. Whereas keeping students, teachers, and staff safe from the threat of gun violence should be the responsibility of all adult stakeholders at each of our school sites. Whereas in order to continue with preventative measures to increase student and school safety, we must act now. Therefore, be it resolved that the board directs the superintendent and staff to update the student handbook to include information about the secure storage of firearms. Resolved further that the board directs the superintendent to create an appropriate letter in both English and Spanish to parents and guardians that explain the importance of secure gun storage to protect minors from accessing irresponsibly stored guns, to be included in annual registration materials at each school site, and requiring a signature acknowledging awareness of secure gun storage responsibilities. And be it finally resolved that the board and the superintendent will continue to work with local law enforcement agencies, health agencies, and nonprofits to collaborate and increase efforts to inform district their obligations regarding the secure storage of firearms in their homes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sultan. I had 2 conversations with adults about gun storage since sitting in that room with you all, and I appreciate that and the resolution. That concludes my remarks this evening. Fellow board members, if you all would like to share. Excellent. Dr. Whitaker, please introduce our first order of business.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. We began the FY '25 budget development process in November 2023. Now, we are at the point of the final budget adoption. Chair Herndon, may I read the motion for the final budget adoption?
Please do.
I move that the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budgets in the total appropriation amounts as presented, including budgeted salary schedules. For general fund, that's $106,383,456. For the school nutrition fund, that is $4,363,833. For the special revenue fund, that is $2,775,999. For the capital fund, that is $10,109,795 million. The total appropriations amount for all funds is $123,633,083.
Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. I will open it up for comments from the board.
Can I speak?
Of course.
So, the last meeting, I had abstained because I said I had questions, and, I'm so appreciative of all of the many answers that I've been given, so thank you. I so appreciate the number of people who came to the community meeting, the budget hearings, and shared their feedback and questions. And then I asked for the public comments, and I read through those, at least 3 times this weekend, including this morning. And so, like the majority of people that responded, I wholeheartedly support all the raises we can get for teachers that is responsible. And, you know, I'll be honest, I still struggle with, and I will always have questions about percentage increases for administrators that exceed teachers. But I have to say, before the IT presentation, I was going to admit that as a teacher of 28 years, I also understand that there are lots of things that happen in my classroom and in the school building that maybe we don't understand. Like, I couldn't teach without the Promethean board. So it was almost as if we were working together with that phenomenal IT presentation, and I absolutely look forward to the May 28th KPIs. And I just thank all of you for being as responsive as you've been. Thank you.
I also thoroughly appreciated people showing up for the budget meeting. I shared that, I believe that was Jana and my 18th and 19th, something like that, budget meeting. And it was the first time anyone had showed up to any of them to ask a question. So part of it is it caught us by surprise what felt like it would be an administrative duty. And that is a compliment to Decatur. I actually think it's a compliment to the administration for getting the word out there, because I bet in the previous 16, a lot of people didn't know about it, and very few people could say that they could do with it. The budget is our most important charge. And I really liked in this book, read it, because it really spoke to me on this, because something Hans, I circled in my book, Hans would love the idea of a school board school. Hans would love this, which you did share with us. So they had a school board school, and they invited people to speak, and they asked for feedback, and someone that the author describes as grumpy stood up and said, so are you saying that when I get on the school board, I'm not allowed to fire the teachers that I don't like who are hurting students? And the author responded, that's correct. You can't do that. The school board does not have that job. They are delegated the job of deciding which teachers are effective, what processes are effective, not to us, but to the superintendent. I think the questions that we ask are, we want an efficient, fiscally sustainable board, and we need to ask the questions about student outcomes. And I've shared privately and publicly numerous times, there are plenty of cuts to be made, and hiring a superintendent and administrative staff to identify those cuts is something that I'm very excited about. One thing that's been missed, I've said it every time we've discussed publicly, this increase in teacher salaries is not a 2025 and we're done. We want to, over the next 5 to 10 years, turn to people and say, wow, Decatur has put their money where their mouth is. The problem is it is very hard to cut stuff. The comment that made me laugh the most is someone said, well, why don't you just take the money you're not using to pay off this fund? And it was like, what money are we not using? Like, I don't understand. And so we're stewards. We're all committed to student outcomes. I appreciate all of your questions. I have found people to be very committed to getting answers and us being the change that we want to while being fiscally sustainable. So there you go. That's my one comment.
I want to second that this is just the first step. We'll be having a compensation conversation next year as well, so more to come.
And I just want to thank Dr. Whitaker again, and we gave her this charge when, as soon as she, took on this role, and, you made it happen, and teachers have been looking forward, to these raises, and I'm sure our administrative staff, have been too, and I'm just, grateful that we were able to make it happen. And the best is yet to come.
And I think the challenge for all of us has been that we have tried to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. We wanted to get this past the finish line, but the next step will be talking about the mill rate. We didn't want to overspend. We were trying to be judicious. I think, Dr. Whitaker definitely looked with a fine-tooth comb where she could find money to be had, and some of those were difficult conversations, and I think that's, I think to your point, in looking at those comments, I think some of the more difficult conversations we had to have with community members and stakeholders way back at the beginning of this, and realizing that every cut that we made or every adjustment that we made was going into this package for the most part, because that's been our commitment. But we are all really, the balance was trying to be good towards the taxpayer dollars. It's not like we have another pot of money that we can pull from, can't put it out any earlier. These are taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. Hearing no further comments, do I have a motion to approve the FY25 budget with total appropriation amounts of all funds for $123,633,083?
I have one more comment.
Okay.
Guess what? We get to start it all over again in October.
Strike that. You can strike that from the minutes, please. Well, that'd be great. That's fair enough. Do I have the motion to approve the FY25 budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Do I have a second?
Okay.
Second, Mr. Hutz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Budget carries unanimously. Thank you for Dr. Broom, and Dr. Whitaker for your, I wish she could have been here, for your hard work. Well, give her a shout out. She earned her, doctorate this year while working on the budget for us and upping her game and the service she's done for the city of Decatur. I could go on and on. She redid the bond when the rates were low and saved everyone in the city lots of money. Anyway, Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the next item.
Yes, Chair Herndon. The next item is the tentative approval of the millage rate. The district has not received the tax digest from DeKalb County as of today. The district must project the tax growth. Based upon conversations with the tax assessor's office and the historical trend, we are projecting an 8% tax increase. An 8% tax digest growth and the current year's millage rate of 20.30 is sufficient to provide the district with the revenue required to fund the FY25 budget while maintaining a fund balance between 4 to 15%. If the digest comes in higher than 8%, I will recommend a rollback. If it comes in lower, we will assess the impact to the fund balance and the approval but yet not funding a vacant position. Chair Herndon, may I read the motion statement?
Of course.
I move that the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education tentatively approve the millage rate of 20.30 for maintenance and operations.
Any discussion?
Just thank you very much for considering a rollback. If it comes in higher than we anticipated, I would still press for us to take the dollars from the vacant positions, but I appreciate that we're looking at that from a fiscally conservative.
I'm not gonna speak for you. I think that's a little in the weeds. Do you mind publicly just saying, like, what do you mean by that?
If the digest growth is higher than we anticipate, then we will roll the millage back so that we are not taking more dollars than we say we need for this budget. Historically, that has not necessarily been the steps that have been taken. Do you want me to explain the second?
Yeah, I
part?
meant the
That's
vacant,
really in
yeah,
the weeds.
well,
Yeah.
let me take a stab at it and make sure I understand it, because I've only heard third person. Essentially, we consistently have unfunded positions, like any large organizations that has been responsible for a surplus. We would like to, particularly going into next year, plan around that, looking at historical trends so that we don't overtax what we need.
100%. If you know that you are going to have a certain percentage of positions vacant over the course of the year, it is appropriate and possible to pull those funds out, return them to the taxpayers, and continue to operate just at a tighter budget. So instead of us having a $3 million surplus at the end of the year due to a number of vacant positions that would not be there, that's roughly $1 million that we could potentially give back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, and essentially, we would be able to look at that process with a new system. So,
Which we're funding in this budget.
yes,
Yes.
yes, that is working.
But we have to get the digest first.
Yes, all of that is.
All right, do I have a motion to tentatively approve the millage rate of 20.3?
To approve the millage rate of 20.
Board Member Utz makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dana, seconded the motion. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Board, we now move to the consent agenda items, which include a school nutrition report, personnel report, monthly financial reports, and the overnight out-of-state student travel. Dr. Whitaker, do we have a monthly financial report?
Yes, we do. So, good evening. The March 2024 financial reports are located in the Assembly agenda. The general fund budget is approximately $100,475,000 and $600, and the general fund budget increased last month by $440,000 due to the receipt of a school bus grant budgeted in the general fund. As of March 2024, the district has collected 80% of the budgeted revenue and expended 63% of budgeted expenditures year to date, which is in line with the percentage that was collected this time last year. March revenue collections and expenditures bring the district's total general fund revenue collections to approximately $80 million and total general fund expenditures to approximately $61 million. For the month of March, there is a deficit of approximately $3.6 million, which means the district expenditures for the month were $3.6 million more than the monthly revenue. The $3.6 million will be subtracted from the fund balance, which is normal for this time of year. Overall, year to date, there is a surplus of approximately $19 million due primarily to the large receipt in the property tax collection. Last year, this time, the surplus was also $19 million. So the surplus of the revenue is normal at this time of year and accounts for the healthy fund balance of approximately $34 million, which includes the unaudited beginning fund balance of approximately $14.9 million. Tax receipt collections will begin to drastically decrease for the remainder of the fiscal year, which will reduce the fund balance. March revenue for capital funds consists of $572,670 from earnings on investments and SPLOST 6 collections. Expenditures totaled $181,821. Revenues from SPLOST 6 is based on the 1 cent collection from DeKalb County sales and are trending at about $13 million or 13% or $1 million less than allocated. The $390,849 deficit will increase the fund balance. Year to date, revenues have exceeded the expenditures by $862,736, and the current fund balance for capital is approximately $8.9 million. Grant funds consist of federal, state, and local grants. Year to date, the district has received $87,465,000 in grant revenue and expended approximately $1.4 million. The majority of the district grants are reimbursements, meaning the funds must be spent prior to reimbursed. All grants are budget neutral. School nutrition revenue and expenditures are trending within the same range as previous years. School nutrition revenue for the month of March was $304,571, and expenditures were $213,164. The $91,407 surplus of revenue will increase the fund balance. Overall, school nutrition has received $2.5 million in revenue and expended approximately $2 million, which leaves a surplus of about $564,000 as of March and approximately $2 million fund balance year to date. School nutrition is projected to spend $1.4 million more for the remainder of the fiscal year. Remaining funds at the end of the year that are not restricted per grant requirements will be used to purchase the food and the supplies for next school year. That concludes the presentation.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items listed 1 through 4?
I move to approve the consent items 1 through 4.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Seconds the motion. Any additional discussion or vote? All right. All those in favor of the consent items 1 through 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. We've also added the consent item from executive session, which is now here in the agenda.
Yes, Chair Herndon. During executive session, the board discussed the authority for the board chair and the superintendent to sign the documents to transfer the Wilson Center property of ownership from the city of Decatur to the Board of Education of the city of Decatur.
Excellent. I think that sums it up. Do I have a motion to approve executive session items, property, Wilson Center purchase and easement?
Item property.
Thank you, Board Member Utz. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Johnson Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously for the Wilson Center property of ownership from the City of Decatur to the Board of Education of the City of Decatur. Dr. Wilson, we also have an action item for our copier and managed print service lease.
Yes, Chair Herndon, Mr. Eston Melton, Chief of Information Services, will present 2 recommendations.
Exciting stuff.
On March 19th, CSD published request for proposal 24010 for copier management services. Scope includes copiers for all CSD sites, the buyout of an out-of-phase copier contract with Tally Elementary, auto replenishment for various consumables, deployment and maintenance, and managed print software as a service. The intent is to replace the whole fleet and systematize a cost-saving contract in time for the opening of next school year. A selection team consisting of school staff and technology staff, facilitated by the district procurement specialist, reviewed 10 proposals between April 26th and May 8th. The selection team evaluated the proposals based on the weighted criteria score of nature shared in the RFP. Contract award recommendation is based on those criteria. The annual cost for these services is not to exceed $200,000 annually for each of the next 5 years, which is a savings. And I shared in the SPLOST budget a month ago. And the initial year's cost is already included in the just approved fiscal year 25 SPLOST budget. May I present or read a recommendation to the board?
Yes, please.
All right. The RFP selection team recommends Sharp Business System be selected for these services at the prescribed annual rate. They further recommend superintendent and staff be authorized to execute a contract for said copiers and managed.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the copier and managed print service lease?
Motion approved.
Thank you. Anderson, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion or questions about the print service or copier lease?
Do we have to vote on it now that Ms. Anderson already approved it?
No, that's not fair. We have to approve things that are over a certain amount. I appreciate you throwing in the part that this is a savings and it's all out of the capital fund, and so appreciate. Well, that makes sense. We're printing less these days.
Yes, the current solution is an improvement of where we were 6 years ago. The last refresh time was fresh in the pandemic. It's still, though, fairly antiquated. And this is an area, frankly, where, yes, we're sensitive to the time that children spend on screens, but still, for what our community wants in terms of environmental sustainability, financial stewardship, this is an area where we see we can use our spend without reducing quality of service, given the overall environment.
Appreciate that clarification. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Got one more?
Yep.
In April, we solicited quotes from qualified vendors for 2,450 Chromebooks, management licenses, and deployment services under a pre-bid contract. The intent is to replace the existing fleet of elementary student Chromebooks, which will reach end of life this summer. CDWG provided pricing under the Sourcewell contract, an instrument that CSD often leverages for technology-related acquisitions for the required equipment, licenses, and services. CSD will pay a lease on this equipment over 4 years with a $1 buyout option for the entire fleet at the term's conclusion. The cost of these services and equipment is $177,762.76 for this and the following 3 years. In the final year of the lease, CSD will again have the option to pay an additional $1 to own the full fleet of devices. This expenditure is in the current year's SPLOST budget and is budgeted for in SPLOST FY25. May I read a recommendation for?
Please.
All right. Staff recommends that the superintendent and staff be authorized to execute a lease agreement for the acquisition of equipment, management licenses, and deployment services for 2,450 Chromebooks from the CDWG.
Excellent. Do I have a motion to approve the K-5 student device lease?
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member Utz. Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson Davis, second motion. Any discussion, questions? I have one. This is all of our Chromebooks?
We have two procurement blocks for our student devices. We got the secondary and the elementary. And they're about equal, and we space them out every couple of years just for various reasons.
Correct. And I remember we got some community feedback the last time we did this about and I appreciate you including it in the note about we sell back and recycle
Yes.
the
They
Chromebooks
have
where
some
appropriate,
residual value. It's not much, but, it's taxpayer money, and we can recoup some of it.
and also keeps it out of the landfill directly where not appropriate. Appreciate that. Other questions? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Elton. I call him Elton, and I combine Elton and Elton. Way to go, Elton.
Dress the part.
I need to answer back there. All right, moving on to policy, Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, thank you, Chair Herndon. I'd like to call on Mrs. Amanda Lynch, Chief of Staff, to present one policy for second read action.
Good evening again, board members and Superintendent Dr. Whitaker. Tonight, we have one policy for second read action. This is policy EE, Food Services Management, lovingly referred to as nutrition policy. This policy has been available for public comment through Assembly, and one comment was received. This comment expressed opposition to the use of alternative meals, stating the negative impact on the student is not worth the minimal costing. The comment also stated a desire for parents to have the ability to restrict their student purchasing a la carte items. In response to this, our nutrition department indicated that parents can inform the school cafeteria if they prefer their child not to purchase a la carte snacks to help prevent accidental purchases. Parents are also encouraged to discuss their family preferences for purchasing a la carte items with their children. We appreciate the stakeholder feedback. Since my time, this is the first time through Assembly we've received stakeholder feedback on policy. Given the board's multi-month discussion that contributed to the inclusion of alternate meals to ensure fiscal sustainability, no changes have been made to this policy from the version that was presented in work session last month. This policy would be in effect beginning for the 2024-2025 school year. May I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
I recommend the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education approve policy EE, Food Services Management, for action.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation to approve policy EE, Food Service Management for action?
So moved.
Johnson Davis, do I have a second?
Second.
Who's second the motion? Any discussion or questions? I think we're making a habit of this tonight. During the discussion, we talked about policy, and one of the focuses is on improving parental feedback and information and how to get it. So I personally, and as a board we can discuss it, would love sort of an update of what we're doing better as a school system going into the next school year to make sure parents know that they're signed up for the right credit card systems, because most of the feedback with the credit card debt was unintentional and that sort of stuff. So I personally would really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And one follow-up question, this will go into effect the next school year, and then the regulation will be in place by that time as well, because it may look a little different in the elementary versus the high school.
Yes.
Any others? All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have scheduled to begin our recognitions at 5:45. I would hate to start and someone not be here. So we're gonna take a 7-minute break, is that right? Yeah. And it's because we're gonna recognize some pretty important people tonight. And so we are adjourned until then, 7 minutes.
This evening from Decatur High School, Oakhurst Elementary, Winona Park, and our very own technology department. After these presentations, we will pause to take pictures before we do 2 last special recognitions to include honoring our retirees for the 2023-24 school year. So let's begin with Dr. Spruill. Coming forward, please. We are excited to celebrate and announce the remarkable achievements of our class of 2024, valedictorian and salutatorian. The valedictorian and salutatorian are the students who earn the highest and second highest grade point average at Decatur High School over the first 7 semesters of high school. These outstanding students consistently exemplify academic excellence and dedication. Each of these students has received numerous acknowledgments of their outstanding academic achievements this school year and has a bright future as they graduate next week. They both demonstrate qualities to be part of the Decatur High School PAC: purposeful, accountable, connected, and kind. First, we have Alexander Gertsch. He is our salutatorian. Alexander is also a candidate in the IB Diploma Program. He has made significant contributions both in and outside of the classroom, including participating in ultimate and fencing programs. Alexander has also excelled in computer science over the past 2 years. He will attend Georgia Tech in the fall, and we look forward to all the great things Alexander will accomplish. Congratulations. We now proudly recognize our valedictorian for Decatur High School 2023-24, Gordon Lichtstein. Gordon is also an IB diploma candidate and dual enrollment student at Georgia Tech. He's also our 2024 STAR student, achieving the highest SAT score in the class of 2024. Please join us. Gordon will attend MIT in the fall, so we expect updates on all the great things he will accomplish as well. Please join us in congratulating Gordon and Alexander on their incredible achievements. Their hard work, perseverance, and commitment to excellence have not only earned them high honors, but has also set a benchmark for their peers in future classes at Decatur High School. Congratulations again to you both. We heard earlier this evening about 13 of our amazing sophomores and juniors who stepped up and qualified to run for the first Student Board of Education representative and apprentice role here in CSD. We would now like to individually recognize each of these students. I'd like to invite Amanda Lynch, our Chief of Staff, to the front for presentations. You're already there. Thank you. First, we will start with the role of apprentice. The apprentice is a current sophomore who is committing the next 2 years to working alongside the Board of Education. These students were running to spend the 2024-25 school year engaging in training before assuming the role of Student Board of Education representative for the 25-26 school year. We'd like to congratulate William Bagenstock, Ellison Ballou, Astrid Joyce, Najma Noor, Anson Booth. And our winner as apprentice is Nia Batra. We will recognize the juniors who ran for the role of representative for the 24-25 school year. We have Luca Alvarez, Hayden Days, Gabrielle Finn, Reyes Lee. Rex Miller Patton. Emily Silver. I am pleased to announce that our student representative who will serve on the Board of Education is Sophia Delaney. Be Elena. Congratulations, and we are so excited to have student representation on our school board moving forward. Next up for recognition is Winona Park Elementary. Winona Park's first grade learning expedition, Growing and Caring for Others, is more than the sum of its parts. This expedition brings learning to life and centers students as the leaders of their own learning, pushing them to do more than they thought they could. Growing and Caring for Others was created by the team using first grade ELA, science, and social studies standards as the foundation. They tended the crops, they planted in our garden, and they learned from community experts and field work to make the learning come alive. As a service learning component, the team partnered with DEAM, Decatur Emergency Assistance Ministry, so that the students became active participants in helping neighbors in need. The first grade team will deliver the fresh produce that they grew in the garden, as well as canned foods collected from Winona Park community to fill DEAM's pantry. First graders also collaboratively created public service announcements focusing on caring for the garden and how to support DEAM. Tonight, we have Winona Park's first grade team to receive recognition for inspiring this work with students. Monica Blackman, Kristen Sabelle, Heidi Westbrook, Sam Gordon, Matthew Hicks. Next are the Oakhurst Owls. I'd like to invite Principal Triplett to join us up front. Sydney and Isabel have been volunteering with Oakhurst Elementary's Robotics Club. The second grade teacher, Kelly Welchel, had the great idea to begin a robotics club. She enlisted the support of our high school team, and these two young people stepped up and continue to show up for students week after week. They help students brainstorm and bust through obstacles to creatively design and execute robotic masterpieces. Thank you, Sydney and Isabel, for all that you do. Please join Principal Triplett up front. Mrs. Kelly Welchel had the awesome idea to start this robotics club, and she has turned it into a lively and exciting experience for all of the participating students. She sought out and received grant funding from DEF and goes above and beyond to support the learning and happiness of children in the robotics club, right down to some pretty cool t-shirts and an upcoming showcase of their hard work. Way to go, Mrs. Welchel, for making this idea come to life. Please join us up front. Okay. The Information Services Department organized a poster contest for students to educate teachers and other staff on best practices around cyber safety and strong pass races. I'd like to invite Esther Nelson, our Chief Information Officer, to the front for these student recognitions. Our elementary winners are Sahara Samanti. Savea De Janeiro. Secondary winner is Basil Petcov. Our elementary runners up are Noble Smith and Catherine Dutko. Thank you all so much for your accomplishments this school year and your contributions to our school community. We'll pause now for our first round of photographs for this evening. At this time, I'd like to invite our school board members and Dr. Whitaker to join us down front. Parents, feel free to take pictures of the group as well during this time.
Congratulations.
Behind the students.
Learned a lot reading those posters and jumping in.
There you go.
Great. That's Thank you, y'all. Congratulations. Good job. Mhm.
Congratulations.
Representative candidate.
Yeah, congratulations.
This is just the beginning of a bunch of times you're gonna be
Right.
standing up and getting photographed, so.
All of us.
Can't see Dr. Fulton. Okay, we're gonna put y'all on the end. Okay.
All right. Okay.
There we go. Now you wanna tight.
Now the trick is to turn shoulders and face, yeah.
We got 1, 2, 3.
Right here.
Turn around. Thank you.
In addition to Officer Tillery, we also come together to celebrate some more very special people, the retirees for the 23-24 school year. These are the individuals who have dedicated their lives to shaping our school community and bringing a difference and making a difference in the lives of students. These retirees have given their all to education, pouring their hearts into teaching, guiding, and supporting generations of learners. They've been there for the ups and downs, the victories and challenges, always with a smile and a kind word. As they embark on this new chapter of their lives, let's take a moment to thank them for everything they've done. Their hard work, dedication, and kindness have made our schools a better place, and their legacy will live on in the memories of all those they've touched. To our retirees, we wish you nothing but happiness and relaxation in your well-deserved retirement. Thank you for everything. First up, we'd like to acknowledge Jennifer McNulty for her 4 years in CSD, but 30 years in education. Come on up.
Congratulations.
She's already running off to the beach. Oh.
Next, we have Ruth Bryant for her 10 years in CSD. Ms. Bryant, let's give her a round of applause. Retiring from ECLC, the Early Childhood Learning Center, is Carrie Rainey, dedicating 11 years to CSD. It's Miss Rainey. Come on up. Ms. Rainey currently works at the Early Childhood Learning Center and has served CSD for 11 years. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next up, we have Ms. Hazel Gibbons. Ms. Gibbons started subbing here in CSD. Come on up, Ms. Gibbons. She started subbing here in CSD in 2006. She has worked full-time for 11 years at Oakhurst Elementary. Congratulations, Ms. Gibbons. Ms. Lolithia Spencer, come on down. Okay. Ms. Spencer has served CSD for 13 years. She's currently working at ECLC. Next up, we have Terry Pope. Ms. Pope has served 13 years in CSD and is currently on staff at Oakhurst Elementary School.
Congratulations.
Next, we have Miss Agnes Wells. Ms. Wells has been a CSD for 20 years and is currently a Spanish teacher, French teacher at Decatur High School.
Congratulations.
Okay. Next, we will be honoring Linda Spadaccini. Linda is currently on staff at Decatur High School and has 20.
Congratulations.
Our next honoree is Belinda Maddox. Belinda Maddox. Belinda is retiring from Beacon Hill Middle School with 21 years served in CSD. Gary Ragland. Gary Ragland. Gary retired in January after 20 in CSD, so let's give a round of applause. Ms. Joyce Butler is also not present tonight, but she retired also in December after 23 years in CSD, serving with our school nutrition at Glenwood Elementary School. I had the pleasure, I think, of hiring this next honoree. I did, yes, Carol Cameron. Ms. Cameron has served CSD for 6 years and is currently on staff at Tally Elementary School. Hey, Mom.
Congratulations.
Also a CSD long timer, we have Arjeen Vogt. Arjeen Vogt. Ms. Vogt has served CSD for 31 years. She has been a long-standing music teacher at Oakhurst Elementary School.
Congratulations.
And last but not least, a fan favorite, Ms. Donna Langley. She has served CSD for 34 years. I do not see her in the audience. She is downstairs. She is downstairs. Ms. Langley has served all schools in CSD in the nutrition department. And I've worked closely with her, so this is bittersweet to have her retire, but like all good things, they must come to an end, right? We would like to invite all of our retirees back up front to have a group picture. And for colleagues and friends, after the pictures, we have a reception downstairs in our professional learning center that we would like for you to enjoy. Again, thank you to all of our and the board.
Oh, no, you're right. I understand, never mind.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, the training right there. Well, that way.
It worked out.
All right, where do we stand? Do we need to move? Move this way.
So are we back up on the, we have to wrap up, yeah, and then.
All retirees, please join us downstairs in the PLC.
Okay, we will now move to the public comment portion of our meeting. Having one person signed up or one group. The following information is included in the board policy manual. Members of the public acknowledge this information when they sign up to speak. This serves as a reminder for all speakers and members of the audience. The opportunity to address the board during public comment is limited to district parents, students, residents, employees, businesses, and organizations. Persons wishing to address the board during public comment must sign in before the period begins, and in doing so are asked to state their connection to CSD and or the city of Decatur. To allow time for our other business, public comment will ordinarily be limited to 1 hour or 20 speakers. At the board's discretion, public comment period may be extended. The time limit is 3 minutes. Persons speaking during public comment will not be permitted to yield the floor or transfer unused time to other speakers. Comments during public comment should be addressed to the board as a body, not to any individual member. At the chair's discretion, persons violating this policy may be asked to step down. Speakers should be courteous and professional, not list complaints about specific persons or individuals connected with the district. The board prohibits abusive language, threats, comments, jeers, applause, or shouts from the floor. Disruptive persons will be asked to leave. The chair may terminate public comments that are profane, vulgar, defamatory, or disruptive. If any speaker's comments begin to verge into areas of hate speech, I will ask the speaker to end their comments. Speakers may not address confidential student or personnel matters, but may submit such concerns to the superintendent. Members of the board will not address persons presenting public comment or speak to the substance. Instead, a member of the admin team will follow up with those speaking at the board meeting this evening. They'll follow up later to people who spoke this evening. Dr. Whitaker, will you call our first speaker?
Yes, we have Bonnie Parker, Kaylin McGinnis, and Yeats Yarbrough.
You got it.
Yep. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to share our idea with you all today. My name is Bonnie Parker. I'm Kayla McGinnis. I'm Yates Yarbrough. We're all students of Miss Hannah Stewart's fifth grade class at Fifth Avenue Upper Elementary. We have noticed that our school produces a lot of trash every day, around 300 styrofoam lunch trays. Styrofoam takes 300 to 500 years to biodegrade, which makes it even worse for the planet, so we wanted to find a solution to this problem. We decided to try reintroducing reusable lunch trays in the school district. So we created a petition. We went around the district, asked people if they supported our idea, and asked them to sign our petition. We collected over 340 signatures from at least 5 different schools in Decatur. We understand that you may have some concerns or obstacles. However, we have some solutions to these problems. Some schools may not have enough money to afford a new washer or new trays for their school to start using a new way of lunch for their students. We plan to help fundraise money for your schools so that you can start using washable or decomposable trays. If you don't want to use washable trays, you can try decomposable and use them to create richer soil for your school gardens. We have a solution if you don't want to buy a washer to teach responsibility to the students and wash these trays themselves. We went to a camp where they had a technique in the cafeteria. They would number off all the students at the table in a wheel and assign the kids numbers for sweeping, stacking, rinsing, washing, and scraping. We thought we could change our current method to a modified version so that it would be easier for a school to do it. The teachers could pick 7 students each term to stay back in the cafeteria a little longer. 1 student would scrape the food off the trays, 2 would wash them, 2 would drive them off, and 2 would stack them. Or the cafeteria staff could clean them if they had the time and they're willing to do it. Switching to reusable trays would save and help the earth, even if only one school decided to make the switch. If you are willing to make a change in our school, please contact me, Yates, or Cameron at any time, or email Principal Hanson if you are in a school outside of state. Thank you for your time. Questions?
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Thank you, great presentation.
Thanks.
Oh, my God. That was amazing.
You guys did great.
Thank you.
I'll move to reopen the budget.
Okay, we're gonna do something about those strays. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that. Thank you all for taking the time to be here tonight. I will share publicly that I received several emails from the speakers this evening. They were professional, they were courteous, they were inquisitive, and just the emails alone brought me faith in our students and all that they can accomplish when they set their mind to it. And then I heard it, and I'm blown away. Thank you all. Someone from the administration will be reaching out to all the speakers. We don't have anyone else signed up tonight. So that concludes our public comments. Next agenda item is a discussion of future dates. Next Tuesday, May 28th, we will have our final board retreat of the 23-24 school year. That will be at Tally Street Elementary School. Based upon the information from the tax assessor, we will host 3 millage hearings sometime in June. We're waiting to finalize calendars and hear when we get that information. We don't want to schedule it and not have the information we need to do it. Please watch our website, social media, updates, et cetera, for those dates when we finalize them. Finally, our last board meeting of the school year will be held on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, right here at the Wilson Center. Any questions or comments about future dates? All right, hearing none, I move no further business. This meeting is adjourned at 6:27 p.m. Thank you.